Everybody is trying to look for the next shiny object when they're starting out a business. And in reality, 90% of them end up having a failed business in less than 1 year. Instead of looking for something cool, you actually need to be looking for something a little bit more boring, because all the boring business have two things that sexy ones don't have. One, low churn rate and reception proof. Regardless of the economy, it's always needed, so you never have to worry about the cash flow issue. And in this video, I'm going to talk specifically about property management industry. This industry has been growing and scaling very quietly, but very aggressively. In 2022, there are $15 billion market cap for property management industry alone. In 2026, in today's market, $29.4 billion with the AI, technologies, and all that stuff in here. And fast forward to 2030, we're projecting to be $43.2 billion in property management industry. In today's video, I'm going to share with you 4 different monetization reasons why the mid-sized property managers can actually scale pretty aggressively. At the end of this video, I'll also share with you a secret on how to 5x your company, your business, when you need to sell it to a private equity fund. First one about owning a property management business is that every single unit is a recurring income. It's not just based on the clients. It's not based on how much work that you're doing. There's a recurring model in place, which is your property management fee based on the total rent that you're collecting from the renter. And this will not go anywhere. If you have a client who's scaling up their portfolio, automatically you're going to increase that recurring model. And if you are expanding to more and more clients or different asset class, all of them will have the recurring monthly income coming to your company every single month. As the owner or investor of a property management company, you no longer need to worry about chasing for the next sale. There is a sales component to it, but if you manage it well without a lot of overhead costs, with enough volume, the monthly fee itself can already cover all the bills. What's very interesting about property management business is that a lot of investors don't even want to touch it. A lot of real estate professionals don't even want to touch it. And this concept prevents them from building their foundation or layer of foundation for scalability. This leads to number 2, monetization model, which is that this entire business model will allow you to upsell other services. And let me explain to you. You got a monthly management fee to kind of cover your basis, but anything that comes in here, tenant request, landlord request, permits, by law, all these increases will easily trigger another sale, another service. So one really good example is that if you're thinking about renting out your property, as an investor, what do you actually need? Initially, you need to get the property up to a certain standard so that it's rentable or it complies with all the bylaws. All that stuff will need to be handled initially. Once you have the unit fully functional, the next thing you do is that you start the advertising for tenants, which is tenant placement service. Tenant placement service can easily go up to 1 month's rent, and once you have the tenants ready to move in, there's also cleaning that needs to be handled. There's also minor repairs that typically needs to be handled. And once the tenants are in, there's also recurring maintenance that you need to handle, such as landscaping or exterior, or even seasonal checkup for the furnace, HVAC, and all that stuff. So there's so many different services that goes into running a real estate operation. And all these components really make the property management business so much stronger, because it's no longer just the first layer of the recurring income. It's all the little other things that will happen every 2-3 months as a landlord that you need to handle. Those services may not be significant, but if you times that by 100, 200, 300, this is where the volumes start getting pretty scary. Every single property needs those type of services. And if you really think about it, it doesn't really matter how the market is fluctuating, the property always needs it. And you always need to hire a property manager to handle that if you want to be out of the operation. And this is how we see the mid-sized property managers start incorporating a division for in-house technician, or maybe they started launching a landscaping company, or in some cases, they're also a brokerage that they're constantly bringing more and more investors in. So there's a buying and selling commissions in all of this model. It's just a constant upsell. And I've also seen property managers that are also paralegal. So there are just so many different branches that you can monetize, and depending on each property management skill set, you're going to see a different type of integration within their business. Now, this might seem very obvious for a lot of mid-sized property managers, but number 3 monetization model is that if the property management company owner is also an investor, this is where things start getting a little bit more interesting. You know how many off-market deals that we receive on a weekly basis, as a company? This is where I started seeing a huge value in owning a property management company. It's not just the monthly recurring income, it's also the deal flow that's coming into our way. So as an investor, we're constantly looking for off-market deals. We're constantly looking for sellers directly. We're constantly looking for the next project, because we get to cost down with our in-house technician doing the projects like that. So what are we actually looking for? We're looking for distressed property. So as these property owners start reaching out to us, right, typically they have one of the 2 problems. Okay, one of the issues is that their property is just not livable, and that's why it's not renting, or it's because they're having the tenant issue. So this is where people's stress level becomes a lot higher, and they reach out to us. So we will either offer our service in exchange for a fee, or we might just ask them, is there a price point that you will be offloading this property for? Because if these investors are just wanting to offload the profit, they typically will be willing to make a business decision by discounting their property value. And this is how we're able to start looking at a lot of deals and decide if we want to acquire them or create a joint venture with them. And even as we're managing clients' properties, there's another thing we notice is that not everybody is always in the best financial position. Sometimes you can see that clients are pushing back certain bills because they're facing a bit of a financial crisis with their business, with their personal finance, and they just need to find ways to cut the price down. That's another trigger point for us to reach out and be like, hey, have you thought about selling the property? Because maybe we can just connect you with a cash buyer. And that's essentially how we turn this property management business into a lead generation machine for our investment company. If you have the full picture in mind, you're going to see that property management is going to be feeding so much business into this investment company. And the investment company can go back into the property management company clientele and see if there's any other clients that's willing to do a JV or expand their portfolio so that you can turn the deals back to the property management clientele. So this is how we are able to keep stacking up different types of services in our ecosystem. And the natural progression of this entire ecosystem is that for some of you guys will also have a dedicated realtors managing these two relationships, because there's going to be a lot of commission that you can keep instead of outsourcing to another realtor. Now, all of that sounds great, but question here is that how do we actually manage the entire thing? Now it goes into number 4 monetization model, which is how do you actually trim out the fat? Because the moment that you have so many different divisions, the data transfer, managing software and all that stuff is really going to start creating a lot of overhead costs for you. A lot of property managers who are not tech savvy, this is the time where you can manage the relationship really well, but the margin is being chewed up by all the data transfer, another administrator, or even just a system problem. This is what we call system debt, right? So in order for you to create more and more margin, this is where you start incorporating system, workflow, and even AI technology. So what I've been doing with my property management business is that I didn't want to continue to scale up my payroll along with the growth of the units. What I managed to do is I create a lot of workflows, and then I make sure that I use AI to connect all these workflows so that I'm not transferring the data, so that I wouldn't need to hire another administrators to handle all the paperwork. And one of the most important KPI that I always measure is the output per person, which is how much more revenue can they actually generate for the company. And this is how I'm able to manage the entire thing with only 3 employees and still have multiple different divisions that generates cash for the company. You definitely need to have a system. And the very last thing I wanted to mention is that in order for any mid-sized property management company to exit from the marketplace, the best way to do it is not to just sell it with a lot of payroll, with a lot of overhead costs. Typically, the traditional property management business is usually running at 15 to 20% margin only, and this is not very high. But the moment that you have a lot of workflow technology software, and more importantly, started using AI to replace the labor costs and turn this traditional boring business into a more modernized operation, this is how you can turn your EBITDA from 1 to 3 all the way to 5 to 10x. And at this moment, you really have some good options. You can exit for way higher evaluation, or you just find another operator to replace yourself, because at this moment, your margin is going to be up to maybe 40 to 45%. If you're interested in knowing how I automate the accounting flow for my property management business, give this video a watch.